Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's Criterion Learning series on employee management. So today we're going to be doing a lot of stuff in HR. That's where employee management. We're going to talk about mass hires, mass leave of absence, and mass terminations. So we're going to talk about those today. So let me go ahead and switch over to my browser here. And as I'm doing this, let me remind you that there is a chat and a Q&A out there. So if you do have any questions, please feel free to ask those questions. And we have a couple of people that are monitoring that. Hopefully I'll be able to answer those questions for you. And I'll also look them over at the end if we have time, and we could talk about them as well. So here we are in my self-service here. And what we're doing is all going to be on the admin side today. So I'm just going to switch right over to that. And we're going to look at that. So I've already opened up a couple tabs here for this. So, excuse me, what we're talking about today, as I mentioned, is employee management, and specifically the option or the actions that are right here under this menu, these three. Now, the others are for one employee at a time. So adding an employee is adding like a new hire into your system. You hired somebody, you need to fill out their information, put in their job, and so forth. So it's doing a new employee hire there. Rehire is somebody who's already existing in the company. So it's going to be a terminated or an inactive record. And you're bringing them back. They were rehired, and you fill out their information there. And then we have these two. These will only apply if you have multiple employers within your system. So if you only have one employer, you won't see this as an option because there's no other employer to add them to. Kind of makes sense there. But if you do have multiple employers, this is allowing you to add an employee to another employer. So you take somebody and now they're going to be in two employers at the same time. Or transfer means they're moving from one employer to the other. So you're going to terminate them from the one they're in right now, and they're going to be active in the new employer. So, but these are all one employee at a time. So I'm not going to cover those in depth right now because we want to talk about mass hire and then mass terminate and mass leave of absence. We will have a training in a couple of weeks to actually go over leave of absence, but I do want to talk about this, the mass leave of absence right here. So mass hire. Now what I've done is I've already actually opened a tab for this, but when you click this, it's going to go to this screen. So I'm just going to close that tab here. And you see here when I do this, the first thing I need to do is if I have multiple companies is I need to choose which employer I'm going to mass hire into. So I'm just going to keep it on this one right here. And then if you've done this before, you may have a template already downloaded. So you don't need to download the template. Maybe you do this frequently. You downloaded the template at one time and you could just, use a copy of it and re-upload it. Now, what I recommend though is to download the template. Now, the reason we do this is new things get added. You might add a new position or something like that. And you want to make sure you have the latest data in your system so that you're always, hiring or using the correct data in there. And, you're not going to be missing something if you have a new reason code for hiring and stuff like that. So I always recommend downloading a template. Now, if you just download it today, you probably don't need to download it again, but you would want to download to make sure you've got the latest codes and so forth in your system. So you just click this little cloud download template button, and that'll download it to wherever you save your downloads on your computer. That's an important thing to remember is anytime you download from the system, the default on Windows and Mac is there's a downloads folder, but you can change that in your browser. So just be aware, it may not be in your downloads folder. You may have changed that to some other folder on a server or something like that. So just, it's going to go there when you do this. In the browser I'm using, which is Chrome, it does show a little download icon, and I can click here to go to that folder or open the file. But just be aware, it may not go to your downloads folder. All right, so once you've downloaded it, now you're going to want to go into Excel, and we're going to do that now. I'm going to switch over to Excel to show you how to fill one of these out, and I'll just do a few different employees here. So give me one moment to switch this over to Excel. And here you can see a template. And I've already started filling this out just so you can kind of see what it looks like. So you'll see the important things now. I'm going to go ahead and make all the columns resize there. So the important things are the ones in yellow. So the first name, last name, email address, the address, hire date, and action. But you'll see the other columns where you probably want to put some information in, but it's not a requirement to put those informations in. So you probably want to put in their social security number, or in Canada, the SIN, or the national insurance ID in the UK, or whatever it is for your country. So you'll probably want to do this. Employee number, you got to put that in there so you have that. The other thing you'll notice is that if I put my mouse over something, it'll tell you whether something is optional or required. So I've got, the first and last name there, but the middle name is not required. So if you leave it blank, you're okay. Same thing here, gender, I can, put a value in there. So one thing when you're putting values in, let's say you're copying, pasting from another spreadsheet, you will want to make sure that the values that you're putting in here match up with what we put in as a validation here. So as an example, it's not male, female, or whatever your codes are for this. It is or I should say the descriptions are, it's the code. So M, F, U is another code I have in there. So if you copied and pasted and it said male, you'd want to change that to M because that's the code. Now, it's possible that in some of these, you may have changed the codes, and that's why we always recommend to download the latest version. Date of birth, when you put in a date, you do month, day, year. It's that it doesn't need to be a 4-digit year. So if you do 8798 or something, it's going to assume 1998. You'll see email address. Now, this will check against the email addresses in your system. So if these already exist, it's going to let me know. I'm going to get an error message when I do that. I won't check the names though. So if these names duplicate, that's not going to be a red flag, because of course, there are certain people might have the same name as other people. So you will want to make sure the email address is unique. All right. Now, when I typed it in Excel, it did make it a hyperlink, but I'm not worried about that because it's going to go across just fine. The address here, again, you'll have the address type. And this is a field in the system here. And then, country, etc. Now, you can, of course, copy and paste if you have the right codes, like I mentioned. And so okay. Now, address too, of course, is not a requirement. So because not everybody's got an apartment number or suite or something. So it's not a requirement. The city, whatever it is. All right. The state, of course, is going to be your state or province codes. So you'll want to make sure those are correct there. Let's go ahead and put them all over here. All right, a zip code, of course, with the US, it's 5. And if you do the 5-4, you could do that too. We're not validating that this is a correct zip code for the city, state, and zip when we're importing, but you will have the ability in the system, and I'll show you this, to do the geocode to make sure that it matches up. If you're doing payroll, it's important you have the right geocode in there. Of course, the hire date, we need to know when they're hired. You'll notice this is required. It can be today, it can be in the past, it could obviously be in the future. I'm just going to use today for all 3 of these. I'm just going to copy and paste that. The action is the reason. So these are all of the different position action codes that I have in my system here. Now, it's not, even though this is the mass hire one, I don't have to choose new hire. I could choose any reason I wanted to. I could even say that they were terminated as the reason. It doesn't make a lot of sense, but I could do that. And again, I'm going to copy and paste that there. The position, now this is something that is optional. And again, this is going to read from your system. So just so you're aware, if you've never used one of our templates before, we do have another sheet here called lookup values that will show you your various codes from your system. Now, yours are probably not going to be anything close to mine, but you'll see, some different examples in here. What might match up will be the state codes, the country codes. Some of these over here on the left might match up, but things like position, department, work location, those are not going to match up to what you have in your system there. But you'll see some examples of what I have in here. So one thing you'll notice when I'm looking at the position code is it is the name of the position, and then the actual code is in parentheses. So you do need to use that full name and code in parentheses. So if I just put down, let's say CEO, and I didn't put the parentheses CEO, it's going to fail when I go to import it. All right. I'm just going to make them all food vendors. Why not? Okay. The title is not a required field, but I could put that there. It's not required because I selected position. Pay rate, of course, you'll see here, if the position is not selected, it's what it will do is by select the position, it's going to use the default rate from the position. So if you've got a, let's say $15 an hour in there as your default rate, it'll use that. But if I would like to state something different, maybe they all are getting more than $15 an hour. I don't even know if 15 is the minimum, but if it is in there, it will use that. And then same thing with the rate unit. Remember, all these are selected on the position. If you've set these up, you've set up defaults for all of these fields here. So you don't have to do it if you're just saying, well, use the default. If I select this, just go ahead and use the default. In fact, let me just do that here for this one. It'll use the defaults for food vendor. But let me just go in here. When I do this one, I've got various codes in here. So these are yearly, quarterly, and so forth. You'll see hourly is H. So if you did type in 17 hourly, you'll see how that works there. A department. Again, I don't recall what my departments are. I'm just going to put it in DIS. I don't remember. I'd have to go on my system to look. Work location. Again, I could leave these as my defaults. Let's just put them in the headquarters here. The type. So these are not necessarily full-time, part-time, intermediate, or intermittent, or whatever. It's going to be whatever your types are for your position type codes. So it could be like I've got here. FTE is your full-time equivalents there. Hours per day, days per week, weeks per year. Again, these are all things that are in the system. So you may already have those values saved on your position. All right, so I left this one blank just so you can see how that's going to work there. Now, of course, I could do more than 3. I could do just one person if I wanted to. I could do 100 people if I want to. I'm going to go ahead and save that. But this is an example of what it's going to look like. So you kind of see how that one is laid out. And I've saved this. So let me switch back over to show you how the import is going to work here. So switch back over here. Now I'm just going to browse to where that is. First off, what I always recommend you do, sometimes Excel will lock the file. So it's always a good idea to just close it so that you make sure that there's no lock on the file there. And it's in my downloads here. Oops, not that one. That was the one I just downloaded. Here's the one I just completed. And then this is the onboarding task list that you might want to give to these new employees. So this is optional, but perhaps you've got an onboarding task list you want to automatically assign to everybody. You could add one or more onboarding lists to them. All right, so just like that. Now, when I click import down here at the bottom, this is going to start the process. So it's going to take that file. It's going to check to make sure, first off, is the file valid? And then it's going to check the data to make sure that the employees are not duplicates, and that the data is not invalid data. So you'll actually see right here 3 different tabs. So if I had some invalid data, maybe I don't know, put invalid information in one of these columns. So I don't know what it could be. Maybe you put the national identifier of a bunch of letters or something. And it wasn't valid data, or maybe the email address was not a real domain. It just said like email at email or something. That would be invalid data. So there's definitely a chance to have invalid data in here, but you'll see everything that was in here. It's going to be imported. All right, not imported would be stuff that was invalid. And then duplicates, again, like I mentioned, that's going to check for the email addresses and the socials to see, is there a duplicate somehow? And that way you could look and say, oh, oops, I have the wrong email address or the wrong social. And then you'll see down here, I can download the results. That way I can go and fix the data that needed to be fixed. All right, but when I do that, it actually already imported these people. So these 3 will be put in here: Cowboy, Jack, Murray, and Emma, where we put in here. I could, like I said, I can't download that. I just downloaded to my downloads folder and opened something up. It showed me everything that downloaded. So basically it was the exact same file that I just filled out, but it's now the results. All right, so now those folks will exist in the system. So if I go back to my employees, here they are. So one more page will be the last person, but here's Jack Cowboy, and I can see his information, his social and so forth, and the primary position. So I can see all this information here. for these guys. Now that person that I did not put the stuff, I want to show you that real quick, just so you can see the one where I left it blank. I don't remember what my defaults are. So that was on Emma James. Let me just type Emma up here. All right, so here you see my default rate was $15 hourly. Not sure why it says 25 full-time equivalencies. That might be a little issue. I need to raise that to our folks there. This should be a 1. So of course I could edit this stuff and fix it. And maybe I should have been part-time or something else. I could go ahead and fix that information in here and do that. But you can see that person was hired there, and the onboarding list was assigned to these folks. So when I go to their onboarding page, whatever was on that list, I don't recall, but there's a whole bunch that got added to them, is now in here that they need to do, and they were notified and so forth of all this stuff. So that's how you do the mass hire. So let's look at the next one here, which is mass terminate. And this is, like I said, it's going to terminate more than one person. So, well, I guess you could use it for one, but it gives you the ability to terminate more than one. Now, if you're going to do a normal termination, you go to their employment information, you could terminate right there. But this allows you to do this for a bunch of people. So when you do this, first off, you're going to select the reason. Now, this is going to be the reason applied to everybody. So I can't do like some for attendance and some for incompetence and some for resignation. Everybody I select is going to be, that way. So let's, I don't know, let's say I have to lay off a bunch of people. I'm going to use mutual separation in there for that. And here's the date. Again, this is for everybody. So if there was a mixture of people, the different dates and so forth, that's not going to work. I have to select one date. Now I can, of course, run this process multiple times for different dates and reasons and different folks if I wanted to do that. I'm going to say they're all eligible for rehire. Again, this is going to apply to everybody. I do want to terminate all their benefits and skip the workflow, the termination workflow if I have one. All right, and you'll notice down here, time offs will be removed automatically. So if they have any time offs, they will be automatically removed. Now, when I come in here, you'll see that I cannot select some people. And the reason I can't select them is that they have something that prevents that. So it could be that they're a manager, they're a hiring manager, maybe they have multiple positions and one's still active or something like that. So that's why I can't do that. So as an example with Chris here, there's a number of things. He's a hiring manager, he's a manager, and he's a recruiter. So they really can't get rid of him. You got to clear that stuff up first before I can terminate him there. Same thing you'll see down here with Albert. He's the manager for another employee. So we cannot mass terminate people who are managers. If you want to terminate them, you can terminate them individually and then reassign those people to somebody else. But let me just pick some people here. I'm sorry. These guys got to go. All right, so I've selected 3. I can select as many as I like. You'll notice here I can, go to different pages. In fact, let me just pick somebody. Sorry, Randall. All right, so those 4 folks are going to be terminated. All right, you'll notice up here at the top, I can search for different things like by department, groups, and so forth. So if I want to, look for just everybody in the sales department, if we're not doing so well in sales or something like that, I can, terminate a bunch of folks over here. Employee groups, maybe I want to look at a certain group. I don't even know what Jackie and Ozzy are, but whoever's in the Jackie and Ozzy group, it's just Chris, so we can't terminate him. But I think you get the idea there. I could search them around, and then employer, I could look for, specific employers if I want to. All right, I could, as you can see here, sort by these columns. So if I'm looking for somebody and I know their last name starts with, whatever letter, I can, sort by that column and then find them. I can also check boxes next to name. So, if I want to include Emily, I could check the box next to her and then hit a little arrow. All right, so now those 5 are all selected there. And I'm going to go ahead and hit submit termination. So this one is all within the system. At the end here, I will get a chance to do a spreadsheet, but this is within the system. And like I said, what it's going to do, I'm going to go ahead and just unselect those real quick. It is going to look at these options right here on those folks. I don't get like an individual option there. I don't remember who I was getting rid of, but it doesn't really matter. All right, so you can see how that's going to work there. And then I'm going to go ahead and hit submit termination. Now, we do get one last validation here to make sure that we know what we're doing. So maybe you have a list of people in a spreadsheet or on a piece of paper, and you know that there's 15 people. This is just one last check to make sure you selected the right number. Now, you may notice up here it says 5 people are chosen, but we're just wanting you to double check and make sure and confirm that you want to terminate those 5 people, because once you do it, they're terminated. So, obviously you want to make sure you're right. So we do make it so you have to enter in the number. So 5, 5, and now I have to enter in 5. So once I do that and hit OK, it will terminate those 5 folks. So that one is fairly straightforward there. Now, occasionally, if there's a bug or something like that, or maybe there's some weird data on people, it may fail. So always check to make sure that you see the number that you just entered is the number succeeded. If there were any failures, it would tell you what the reason would be. It's usually not a bug. It's something like, maybe their benefits have some weird setup in it or something like that. So check this one to make sure. And then I can download it right here. That'll export a spreadsheet of who I just terminated, just so you can see what this one looks like, because I've shown you the other spreadsheets. I don't do anything like in the system with this, but it just shows me the 5 folks that I terminated. All right. So that one is the mass termination. And let me go right back in to here. All right, and I'll just close this one. So those folks are now terminated. If I were to look through my list here, of course, they wouldn't be here because I had active employees. You may remember I had 126 a few minutes ago. Now I've got 121. Now, as I mentioned, I can go to a specific employee and go to their employment information and terminate them here. Obviously, this is one at a time, but if there's different reasons, different dates for all these folks, this probably would be the faster way to do it, just depending on how many we're talking about. All right, and then let's talk about the last one here, which is the mass leave of absence. So this is similar in the way this looks to the mass hire, in that you need to select the employer. And you'll see here, you have 2 options. One is to create a new leave of absence. So you're putting people on leave, or you're modifying existing leave of absence. So maybe they're already on leave and you need to change some information, bring them back from leave, because they're no longer on leave, something like that. So I'm going to keep it on create leave of absence record. And I'm going to download the template. I always recommend, like I just did for the mass hire, to download the template just in case. And the reason we do that, especially for leave of absence, is that it will show you people, it'll show you the employee numbers. So if you don't know the employee numbers, at least you get a list of them. And let me show you the spreadsheet here. All right, so this one is similar. I'm just saying that because it has this lookup values table as the new hire one. Now, there's only 2 columns in lookup values. There's the employee number, and then there's the type of leave. So you do need to know the employee number. We don't put the name in here. So if you're looking for a particular person, you'll need to look it up in the system first, or maybe you've got a list of them or something like that, and you could use the employee number for that. So you'll see here that I have to pick employee numbers. I'm hoping that these are the right people that I'm going to put on leave. So just going to guess 2 people there. All right, the type of leave, I'm going to put them both as mandatory here. Of course, they could be voluntary. The start date, now again, these yellow columns are required, so I'm going to do that. So the start date, let's just put it as yesterday for both of them. It could be different dates if that made sense. All right, and then the estimated end date. So if there was I knew the end date was going to be, in December or something, I could go ahead and put that down there. In fact, let me just pick that date. I don't know if that's an actual day of the week, weekday, I should say. Maybe that's a Friday, or maybe it's Saturday, Sunday. Who knows? It doesn't really matter. Now, the actual end date, I probably don't have that right now, but it's possible that maybe you didn't put that information in there to start, and now you're putting in their LOA information. All right, the reason here is something where if you do this in the system, you type in the reason. So you might put down like maternity leave or something like that. So the reason is a text field here. It's not a dropdown. So I could put down maternity leave or something like that. maybe I need to say health reasons. All right. And then these two fields these are fields in the leave of absence, but this is when you may want to stop their pay and when you may want to stop their accruals. So, maybe they're going to use up all of their paid time off, and then you're going to stop their pay and or accruals. So you may not know those dates now, but maybe you have. Maybe you figured out exactly when they'll run out, and you want to say it's going to end on a certain day. You could do that. And then if you needed to put some notes. So you'll see these are not required. I'm going to leave them blank because they're not required. And I will go ahead and save that. And I'm going to switch back and import this. All right, so now, of course, just like the other one, I'm going to browse this, and I'll go find that. It was in my downloads folder, and I'll go ahead and click on import. All right, so similar to the mass hire, I could see here I have two tabs, imported and not imported. Now, not imported would probably be if maybe they're already on leave and you were trying to add another one, or maybe they were terminated or you chose the wrong employee number. That would not be imported. Otherwise, basically, it's just showing you the actual results of what you just did. It has already placed these two folks on leave. So Spencer and Dolan are now out there on leave, right? So you can see that. Now, of course, if I want to download a copy of this, I could do that. It's basically the exact copy of the spreadsheet that I just did. All right, but now if I go and look at employee 32 as an example, they will be on leave. So I can go to LOA, and there is my person who's on leave. So I can look up their leave information and see what I imported. There you go. So that is the mass leave of absence. Now, the other one is to update this information, that other template. So this would include the people who are already on leave, and maybe I wanted to mass update their end date or stop their pay on a certain date. That would be, if you're going to do that, for a bunch of people. You could, of course, use it for one. But if you wanted to do that for a bunch of people, maybe you do like a mass leave for people for a month, and now you're going to mass return them all. Now you know the dates. You want to bring them all back in. The template allows you to do that. That was the action right here under mass leave of absence that says modify existing. So again, you would download this, and then you could maybe change their end date to a certain date now that you've determined what date that is. All right, so those are the three employee management actions in mass. So that's going to cover our training today. And let me bring up our slide because we have some new dates out there for things that might be of interest to you. So you should be able to see my screen where we've got our upcoming Learning Series webinar. As I mentioned a few minutes ago, we are going to be going in depth into leave of absence and doing it manually. I'll cover the import again in a couple of weeks on Halloween, on 31st, leave of absence. So we'll go in depth on that one there. We are then going to be getting into our year-end training. So if you're just an HR person, you may want to join these, you may skip. Of course, if you're in Canada, you may not be interested in the US ones and vice versa. So, but you'll see there the year end for US and Canadian. We're going to do them twice because, it's important stuff and you may not be able to make one or the other. Maybe you're on vacation, hopefully having a good time. You don't need to join my class from the beach or something like that. So US one on the 14th of November, then we're going to do Canadian on the 28th, and then we'll repeat the same materials on December 12th for the US, and then the same materials right after Christmas on December 26th. If you're interested in the Affordable Care Act reporting, that will be the next one after. I just didn't need to put 5 or 6 of them down here, but the next one after that, the first one in January, is going to be ACA reporting. So if you are not a payroll person, but ACA person, the first one in January, we're going to cover ACA, and then we'll do a repeat of that in February. So just be aware of that. Keep your eyes out for emails with announcements and so forth. I did want to check the Q&A, and let's see here. So we did have a question. Oh, looks like it was answered. Can a workflow or notification be added to inform the supervisor or any designated person, designated position of a termination? So if you do have a termination workflow, it can let people know about it. So you could say like notify payroll or something. So, but in that mass termination, there was a checkbox to not do the workflow, to skip a workflow. In fact, let me go back to that real quick. And so the question was, can you do that? If you do not skip the workflow, yes, it will follow the workflow you have for your terminations. That's that on there. And then let's see here. Oh, okay. I just saw an announcement from Nancy that the 26th is a stat holiday in Canada. I was curious about that because I know the 25th is Christmas. So what we'll do is we'll put that. I'll move that to Wednesday, the 27th. So thank you, Nancy, for that heads up there. Hopefully the 27th is okay. It'll be a Wednesday, but I know it's important information, so hopefully they can work out there. And then Bianca just asked, or Blanca just asked when. I'm not sure what the question is about that one. So I don't know if she wants to clarify what's going on with that question. Oh, Patrick cleared it. Okay, so thank you today for your questions, and hopefully we answered all the questions you have. Of course, if you do have any questions, as always, you can reach out to either your partner or you can reach out to support. So you'll see here, this is our support. So if you're working directly with us, you can call our number, send us an email with questions about obviously what we talked about today with the mass hire, termination, and leave of absence, but any other questions as well. So even if it's not related to that, that's what support's here to do, help you out and answer those questions for you. As always, hopefully we'll see you again in 2 weeks. I do want to remind you, if you did not see the email, we will have our webinar on the new release on Friday. So that is our new release is going to be released on Monday, this coming Monday. And so we're doing a webinar on it on Friday. So I will hope to see you all there on Friday. And otherwise, if I don't see you, hopefully you enjoy the new enhancements and so forth. Read that email to read about them. And then we'll have the video available. If you can't attend, you can just watch the video of me speeding through all of our new enhancements. So thank you so much for joining me today. Hopefully I'll see you again in a couple of weeks or later this year. We talk about year-end stuff. Thank you so much for your time.